met someone, thought they were pretty cool, maybe even a little charming, and then they do something that makes you go, whoa, no, absolutely not. This is a story about a guy who was into me, and I could have been into him too, but he made one huge mistake. So if you want to know what to just never do when trying to date someone, this video might give you some good tips. Do not take this video as advice to date me, because I'm actually in an exclusive relationship. I know that is apparently an illegal thing to say as a VTuber, but stay tuned if you want to know how to just not totally scare off a whole person. Let's go. So at the time that this happened, I was single and just living my life. So I'm going to change a few details here because I don't want people finding this person and like ridiculing him, because honestly, I don't think he's evil. I just think he went about this the worst possible way ever. So I actually hadn't entered this scenario looking to date anyone. I was in a server for cosplay, and the friend of mine who had asked me to join told me, oh, hey, there's a meetup of some of us in the city if you want to join. I know you're a new member. It'd be fun to meet everybody. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. It ended up being a group of just 4 people, and actually only one of the people I'd never met before. One of them I met like briefly at a convention, and the other one I knew of him, but I hadn't met him. But primarily, we're all like internet friends. We're basically all going by internet handles right now. Person I hadn't met, let's call him Broccoli. So anyway, Broccoli was actually pretty, I guess, well regarded in the community. A lot of the stuff he did was really popular online. He'd won a lot of contests. I wouldn't define myself as like a fan of him, but I always just looked up to his skill and his craft level. So I was like, oh, it'll be pretty exciting to meet Broccoli. The day of this meetup was actually just one day after I'd had a colonoscopy. I'm not going to go into colonoscopies here, but let's just say I was feeling a little bit drained. But luckily, even though we were walking around, it was a pretty low-key day. We went into some shops, like 2 different museums. Broccoli was, like, honestly, probably the most social and talkative one of the group. He was really friendly, made me feel super welcome. He was also kind of cute. So during lunch, he's, like, asking me a lot of questions about myself, and I'm thinking, why do you want to know this? To be clear, they were not creepy questions. I get confused when people are like, oh, so what is your favorite this and that? I'm like, there's 2 other people here. Why do you care? Anyway, yeah, I didn't realize that he was probably into me until we went to the next museum. The 2 other people went off somewhere, and he's just like chatting with me and like really listening, like looking in my eyes. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of sweet. He really is like listening and paying attention to me. Okay. And then later on in the day, the other guy leaves. It's just the 3 of us, my friend, Broccoli, and me. We walk around to a few more stores. We all got dinner, and while we're in the restaurant, he again is asking me a lot more questions about myself. He's asking me about my job, which I have mentioned on this channel before is a job in design. And he's asking me, like, oh, can I see your website? Can I see your work? Can I see your portfolio? And the thing is, I think a lot of people actually in nerd communities are kind of like this. My like professional life and my nerd life are actually totally separate, and I don't want them overlapping. I really wouldn't want people in my workplace to know about my like convention habits, and I really wouldn't want my convention people to know about my day-to-day job. It's just a separation I prefer. So I tell him this, and he kind of keeps on pushing. My friend kind of like cuts him off and is like, no, she doesn't want to hear about this. And then this is when I realized that since the other guy left, this guy, Broccoli, has literally not said one word to my friend the entire rest of the day. Like, this is the first time they're talking. He had just been talking to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. That is a little rude, but yeah. And he's like, oh my gosh, you guys want to go around more? Do you want to like go see a Broadway show? Do you want to do all this stuff? And I'm like, oh geez, it's late. And also, I'm still feeling really drained from my colonoscopy. I tell him, I had a colonoscopy yesterday. Like, I feel like I don't have any electrolytes in my body. I have to go home. So I paid my friend on Venmo for dinner. About like 30 minutes into my journey, I get a message from him on Discord. The first message between us, and he's basically like, oh, I hope you're okay. I hope you get home all right. And I really enjoyed spending time with you. And again, I'm like, oh, that's kind of sweet. Even though he was maybe not the nicest to my friend, And then I go home and I just crash. I wake up the next day around like, I don't know, maybe 1 p.m. And I have more messages from him. He was talking to me about some anime, saying like, oh, hey, I found your cosplay account, which again, I didn't give to him, but whatever. Being like, oh, look, I see that you cosplay this character from it. Great job. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. And then I crash again because I am just exhausted. And then when I wake up, I have a lot more messages. Actually, let me read them. Bro, this guy deleted them. It looks like I'm talking to myself. Okay, I gotta find the screenshots then. So right before I fell asleep, he was asking me more about my job. And again, I said, oh, it's really corporate. It's really boring. I don't really want to show this. So then he says, sorry for the blunt question, but do you always pretend to be less interesting than you are? And this time I had crashed. I had fallen asleep. 10 minutes later, he says, that sounded more accusatory than I meant it. Being humble is a virtue. Then 30 minutes later, he says, from our talks, I thought you had an interesting mind, but you didn't seem to think so. And then he sends another message, and he says that he found my YouTube channel. Not this one, by the way, a different one. Again, I'm still asleep. Then in 2 hours, he sends me another thing. Again, I am asleep this whole time. I have not replied. He says, it's okay to say it. Don't worry. You're a nice guy, but I'm not interested. Heard it before. We'll probably hear it again. You don't need to feel bad. We're still two people with common interests who can get along as friends. We don't need to be more. It's not like I was being friendly because I thought otherwise. I wake up and I read all these messages. Oh God, okay. Bro, I was asleep. I told you yesterday I wasn't feeling well. And then I say, hey, this was a little overwhelming to wake up to. Haven't had a good health week, so I've been in and out of sleep and getting my life together. And he replied, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. You stopped answering. I thought I scared you off. And then he sends another that says, though if I didn't, I probably did now. And then I just said, I mean, LOL, this is just a lot. And then he says, sigh, like the verb. I know, sad face. It always is, isn't it? You can just take a minute, or more than a minute, or forever. No expectations here. So I'm like, okay. And I just didn't reply then because I was like, oh boy, this is a lot. I don't really know what to say now. And then he sends another message 20 minutes after that. He says, I do have a confession to make though. I looked up your name and found your website. He doesn't know my name. My legal name is not on my Instagram. It's not on my YouTube. It's not on the Discord. So how the heck did he find it? I realized he must have looked at the Venmo the other day to my friend. I don't really like that. So yeah, he sends me a link to my own website, the one that I told him I didn't want to show him the other day. And then he says, you have an absolutely incredible mind. And now I'm annoyed. The thing is, with the things before, like, I can kind of relate. Like, there's times when somebody doesn't reply to me and I feel like, oh God, I'm an idiot. Everyone hates me. But the fact is, I woke up and I was like, oh, bro, this is a lot. And then he's like, you can take however long you want to reply. You have to actually mean that. If 20 minutes later you send me evidence that you found my website that I told you I didn't want you to look at, that is, I don't know, not cool to me. And then I said, this doesn't really make things better, LOL. It's honestly really old work and I was about to take it down. So the fact that you searched for it is probably something you should keep to yourself. We just met yesterday and this is really a lot. And then he says he's sorry, he didn't know it was personal. He says, I didn't intend to dump this all on you. I'm just so used to being ghosted right out of the gate that I thought that had already happened. I hope you aren't offended that I looked you up. The thing is, I'm not offended he looked me up. I'm just kind of creeped out because I told him I didn't want him looking at my portfolio. And then it almost felt like a way to get me to talk. Like he's like, oh, you can wait. And then he says this. I'm well aware we only met yesterday. This was not supposed to go down like this. But I tend to make mistakes in these matters. You'd be well within your rights just to drop this and never talk to me again. And then I'm like, okay, I think this guy is just like really anxious and I don't want to be a hater. So I just try to put it all out on the table. I say, it's much better to be straightforward with the person and get a yes, no, than sending them a ton of messages when they could be busy with anything, assuming they automatically rejected you. It doesn't help your case at all. And I say, this is way too much for me to take on emotionally. To be truthful, I am not interested right now. I don't think anyone would after waking up to messages like this. And he says, yes, it's an issue. And I said, I'm fine staying in the server together, but please do not pursue this any further and please do not contact me. I don't know, this might seem a little extreme because it wasn't like he was harassing me. Clearly he was insecure. But to me, it's just a lot of emotional baggage to dump on me. And I'm like, if he does this after one day, what's going to happen? Even more than that. And so I tell my friend, and she tells the other guy who's there, who's a mod, and he gives this guy a talking to. I say, don't like kick him out or anything. He didn't do anything illegal. He's just stressing me out. But then this guy, even though I told him not to talk to me, just like replies to me in the server all the time. I never reply to him. He's either replying or emoji reacting. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, if you're an anxious person, this might be good advice for you. Putting that anxiety on another person, especially if it's somebody like you like and you're trying to pursue, probably isn't the best pathway to get them to feel comfortable around you and to like you. Also, maybe this is common sense, but like when somebody says something, just listen to them. I told him I didn't want to show him my portfolio. The fact that he went and found it, honestly, to me, was like the big final straw. I feel like a lot of people just don't believe people when they say things. For example, seems like this guy feels like he's somebody who's constantly getting rejected. Nobody likes him. But to be honest, he was like sociable. He was friendly. He was cute. If he had asked me out on a date, I would have said yes. I mean, before all this happened. And it really feels like it's his just anxiety biting him in the foot. I feel like there's also a lot of messaging nowadays that like women only want men that make a bajillion dollars and are 6 foot 1,000. If you actually like listen like to girls, a lot of my friends who are like amazing, beautiful women, if you listen to a lot of their tastes, they're just into like weird gremlin men or like quirky, strange dudes. Like, you really don't have to be all that. You just have to, like, be, number one, yourself, but number two, respectful of somebody's wishes. So yeah, I'm curious if you've ever had a situation like this where you thought somebody was totally cool and then they just totally messed it up. Or if you have been that person who messed it up, don't worry. You probably just shouldn't look up their personal information when they specifically told you they didn't want to share it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.